Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to go over password recovery on the FortiGate after 7.2.4. After 7.2.4, they've removed the maintainer account. So if you're trying to do a recovery that way and it's not working, chances are you're past 7.2.4 and you're going to have to essentially format the firewall and recover it with the old backup. Now, there's some prerequisites that you'll need. You'll need to have console cable access. Okay. You'll need to have a TFTP server up and running. You will need to have a firewall image, preferably the image that you had on the box prior to doing the recovery. Right. So if you get an image, if you're on 7.2.4 and then all of a sudden you go 7.6 and you try to recover that image, it's probably not going to work out too well for you. It might throw some errors. Okay, so you want to have the image of the firewall that you currently have on there if possible. You also need to have the config if possible. If you don't, you are rebuilding this from the ground up, right? So, our prereq, we need to have our console cable. We've got that connected. We've got our TFTP server up and running. If you don't want to know what a TFTP server is or where to get one, just go over to SolarWinds and get the TFTP server. Change that file location to something you know. Drop those images in that location. I think that TFTP-root might actually be the default. And have that all up and running prior to. And you'll see I've got my images for the firewall and the configs. I've got two configs in here because I'll show you why I modified one of the configs and keep the original, right? But we'll get into that. All right, so the first step is we're going to get into this guy through the console. And I've got the baud rate, data bit, all that stuff. But essentially, if you know your COM port and go to PuTTY, just type it in. It's all the defaults. Now, I happen to know the current password, so I'm cheating slightly because I want to reboot this thing remotely, but you might have a remote power switch and remote, console session if you're lucky, right? If you're not, then you're physically there. I am running VDOMs on this for another lab that I was doing, so I have to actually get into config global to execute a reboot. But this is essentially just you would pull the power, turn it off, whatever. And you're going to wait for the little menu to go up. Now, speed and having everything kind of outlined is somewhat important because I noticed that when I was doing this before, if I wasn't right there to put things in, it would try to automatically try to reboot. So if I was too slow gathering any of this information. Okay, there's our quick menu. We're just going to hit space, and I'm going to right away F to basically erase all data. So if you got anything on here at all, it is gone. All right. Now the next step I'm going to do is configure the TFTP parameters. Right. So I'm going to pick my port, which is P, and I only have two options here: HA and management. Management is already selected, but I'll hit 2 just for it, and it'll select management, or I can hit enter. Then I want to set the IP address. and I'm going to say 192.168.40.15. Pick my subnet mask, and I can leave that, so I'll hit enter. Now, if you need a gateway, I don't necessarily need one, but I'm going to put one in here. I'm going to say 192.168.40.1 because I'm going to be on the same, my TFTP server, it's on the same subnet, so I don't really need a default gateway. But I'll put one in there just so you guys see it. And now I need to set the TFTP server address, 168.40. That's what I'm saying, like having all this information kind of in a spreadsheet. I think I might. It is pretty handy. Because I'll show you kind of what will happen if you just kind of take your time putting this in. It'll just kind of go through and start rebooting, and you're going to be like, what happened? My firewall image. And I'm going to do a quick diagnostic as well, so that I can make sure that I can ping the TFTP server. I'll say 1, and I can ping it. That is good. I will quit for Q. Now, it just brings you to this menu here. I took the liberty of actually copying it in here so you know what it is. But you'll just hit Q to quit and go back. And at this point in time, you can hit T to transfer the image. Now, you should see the TFTP server start to work, and it's copying. To my knowledge, it doesn't do FTP or SCP or anything like that, which I would have preferred at least an FTP versus TFTP, because it's, you might have a bad link. If that's the case, you might have some issues there. I would recommend probably putting it on your laptop directly and then going in or something like that. But TFTP is your only option here, unfortunately. Now I'm going to bring up my command prompt here too, and you can see that I can ping, or should be able to ping. Well, I was pinging the firewall itself. Oh yes, and this portion here, it's going to ask me if I want to save it as the default backup or run image without saving, and I'm going to say D because I want to put that as the default. Now I'll pause the video, let it fully initialize and boot back up, and then we'll start trying to recover. Okay. Now the firewall is completely back up, and if I wanted to try to actually ping that firewall again, I can't, and the reason I can't ping it is because it went back to the default config. So if I get into the CLI of it, I'm going to go to admin, no password. I'm going to change it to Fortinet 123 and Fortinet 123. Config system interface, and then edit the management interface, and I'll show you that it went back to the default 192.168.1.99, right? So it's simple to just set that here, set IP as 192.168.40.15, which is what we want, so we can access it again through the GUI. 255.255.0, and we can do a quick show. That'll show us what we have just to confirm, and then next or end, and uh, that will allow us to start pinging and accessing that firewall again remotely. So now that we have access to the firewall, we're back into it. How do we get the config back on here? And what I like to do is copy. This is the original config, and this is what I say is the FortiGate modified config, right? So I'm going to look for the original config here and just do a search. You're going to open it up in Notepad, look for password, and you'll see the one you want really is under config system admin. But if you just search for password, it's usually going to pop up with that first one, especially if you have that one. But you're going to want to change that. It'll look something like this with that ENC for encryption and the encrypted password. I, again, will copy the original, paste it somewhere else, and then actually make a modification to that copy. So that way I still have and maintain the original. And then if I modify it, here we're going to look for password, what it will look like. I will set the password as FortiNet123. So now I have a password modified version, and then I can bring up my the GUI interface. You can do this from the CLI as well. I find it a little bit easier if you use the GUI, especially some people are just more comfortable with it. Let's see if I can actually type, and it won't let me in. And then refresh. Okay. And we click through all of that. And your backup, right here under admin, configuration, we will do a restore option. Now, once you've selected the file here, you're going to say OK. That OK is going to then bring up a restore and global config will cause the device to reboot. Are you sure you want to continue? And at this point in time, you can say OK, and then it will go through the restart process, bringing up the config back to the original. And I'm going to do a continuous ping, but I can also look at the CLI to see when this comes back up. So that will take a minute for it to come back up, and I'll pause shortly. Okay, you can see I'm able to ping it again. There's the firewall login again, and now I'm going to log in. Still with that FortiNet123 password, and later, and you can see now I have my original config that I had the VDOMs on there before. So that is it. You're back in. I would say make sure I could see this biting somebody if you don't have that config, the original config, or the image that you're currently running. So please back up your images and keep your configs and things like that. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, or drop a like for the video or comment. That'll help me out. Thank you.